Let's have some fun today. I thought we'd pull out Topaz Studio 2, my creative toolbox. This is episode number 41. Hello everyone, welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. So I'm going to take this image today and we'll turn it into a painting using Topaz Studio 2, my creative toolbox. Now I'll link this image in the description below. It's a stock image, so you can go ahead and download it and follow along with me if you like. It's a really good way of learning how to do these painterly type effects with photographs. Before I send this into Studio 2, I'm going to clean this image up a little bit. This dark cloud here I think is going to bother me up here. And there's a mound here and one over here. I think I want to get rid of those. So I'm going to use my lasso tool and just lasso around this dark cloud up in here. And I'm going to use my fill dialog to fill that in. And the shortcut for that is Shift Delete. And that opens up your fill dialog. Now make sure your contents are set for content aware. If they're not, just click here on the drop down and make sure you have content aware checked on. And then just click OK. And yeah, that looks good. I'm going to deselect that by typing Command or Control D. Now I have a couple repeating patterns up in here, so I'm going to get rid of those. I'm just going to grab my healing tool, or my spot healing tool, and my shortcut for that is J. And I'm just going to get rid of these repeating patterns like here, and this one right here. It's gone, just like that. And I don't like this little line right here, so it's going to turn into a painting, so it's no big deal, but I think I'm okay. But I have a couple little trees back here too. I just noticed these. I'm going to get rid of this one, because it'll probably look like dust specks when I'm all said and done here. So let's just get rid of that. I find if you get rid of this stuff before you go ahead and make a painting, you're going to be better off. And there's a couple over here. Let's just clean these up real quick. And by the elephant's ear, let's get rid of that one. And a couple of these little spots back in here. I think that'll be good. And now on these guys, what I want to do is get my lasso tool. I'm going to circle around this one right here. Hold my Shift key down. That'll let me add to the selection. I'm going to try to do this all with one shot and around this elephant's ear. Just come up in here just a little bit. Something like that. And now we'll do that same Shift Delete. Brings up our fill dialog, content aware, click OK. And just like that, they're gone. Command D, and now we're ready to roll. It helps to study your image before you send it into like Topaz Studio 2 to add the painterly effect to it, just to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So I think this is really going to help us. I'd rather do this now than try to fix this stuff later. The next thing I need to do is duplicate this background layer, because you never want to send the original background layer into Topaz Studio 2. So the shortcut for that is Command or Control J. That just duplicates that layer. Now we can come up to Filter and we'll send this into Topaz Studio 2. I think I'll start out by going straight to the impression filter. So let's come up here to add filter, and we'll come down to stylistic and click on impression, and that opens up the impression painting filter. I'm going to start out with just this first type 1 paint stroke. Okay, we'll go with that, and I think I'll come back and alter that later, but let's try this. And now we need to determine the number of strokes. So low will give us a more abstract look, medium a little more defined look, and high a really defined look. But I think I want like a medium here. And now we're just going to go down here and start to play around with we can play with our brush size, but I think I like it. Let's play with this paint volume. Watch this area right up in here as I move this paint volume to the right. Notice how can you start seeing how the paint, you can start seeing more detail in those strokes. And if I keep moving it, you'll see more and more and more. You see that? And now you can really add a lot of that, but you got to be careful there. You want it to look realistic, and I want to add some strokes in here. So I think I'm going to go maybe right about there. I think that looks really nice. And then you have this large brush volume. You can play with this as well. That will be your larger strokes. You can see them coming out more. But I think I'll leave it maybe right around there. And I'm also looking at this grass in the foreground and the elephant here. So we'll keep playing around here. And then we have paint opacity. If we draw this to the right, we'll bring out more detail in those paint strokes. Can you see that? And sometimes I like to add a little bit of extra detail there. I don't want to go too crazy, but maybe something like that. Now, I don't like all this detail in the sky. I like it in the foreground. I'm going to take care of this later, but I'll use a different filter for that. Now let's keep working down here. Now we have stroke rotation, and let me start to move this to the right and watch the paint strokes as I do this. Notice how they start shifting to the right. And sometimes you can go crazy with this, and I find a little goes a long way here. So what I think I'm going to do with this is maybe just shift them slightly to the right, just a wee little bit. I like that. And then you have one called rotation variation, where that will rotate with a variation, those strokes. You see that, how it's really altering it. Now you can play with this, and you might say, you know what, I really like this effect, so I really highly recommend to play with this. But I might just add a little tiny bit of variation to my strokes. Now this one here adds a little color variation to the actual colors of your image. So if you move this to the right, you can see some other colors are being introduced in. You see that? And sometimes you may really like that effect. I kind of like it in the grass, but I think it's a little bit too much. I don't like what's happening on the elephant. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to shut that off. But you have that if you want to add some extra color variation to it. Now the stroke width is an important one. It's how wide your strokes are. So right now it's at 0.02. So if I move this, the strokes will get wider. You see that? And they take on a whole different appearance. So it really pays to play with these. You know, if I move way in, it becomes more like a sketchy look. So again, experiment, play around. But right at 0 is the default setting. So and I think that looks pretty good, but let me just move it a little bit. Now, I think I'm going to leave it right where it is. Maybe, well, let's say 0.03. How about that? And then the length will be how long the stroke is. So if I draw this to the right, it lengthens those strokes. Now, it kind of helps down here in the grass. I kind of like that. So I may lengthen those strokes a little wee bit. Not too much, but a little bit. And I like that. I really think it helps out in the grass. And next we have this thing called spill, or slider called spill. And so let's move this to the right. And it lets that paint spill out. You see that? Gets a little more sloppy looking. So depending what you like. And I believe these default, it's 0. So do I want any spill in there? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm just going to double click this. It'll set it right back to 0. Now, smudge is a nice one. If you want to kind of smooth things out a little bit, you can take the smudge slider and start to draw it to the right and see how it starts to smooth everything out. And that's kind of cool. And sometimes for really nice artistic effects, you can really drag it to the right if you want a certain more abstract look like that, which can be cool too. But I kind of like everything the way it is so far, so I don't think I'm going to mess with the smudge. If I do, it would be, maybe just a tiny wee bit. Okay. Because if you look right here in the elephant, you can see some details in there. And if I move this slightly to the right, I can just kind of smudge that in just a little wee bit. Makes it look a little more painterly, and I like that. But I'm going to come back and add more detail to that elephant later. So hang in here with me. So that's the smudge. I'm not going to mess with the coverage. Now the painting progress is nice. If I start to move this to the left, it'll take it through various, it's like as if you're actually painting the image. You know, you would start out painting, you're adding more strokes. And so I like to play with this sometimes, because sometimes you find a little spot where it looks really good. I mean, a lot of the times I'll leave it just where it was, but actually, you know what? I'll move this and stop when I think it looks kind of nice. And you know what? I think I like it here, so here is where I'm going to leave it. And I think that's about all I'm going to do in here, except you notice I've lost my eyes on my elephant. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. Zoom into the elephant, and let's come up to the impression filter right here and click right here. This will add a layer mask, and I'll grab a brush and I'll take this transparency slider and drag it to the right and make it like a different shade of gray, so it'll add some of the original effect back, but it'll still keep a lot of the painterly effect. I'll adjust my radius, and we can leave edge wear on, and my softness is pretty good. Now the eye, I believe is right. Yeah, there's the eye right in that area. So I want to bring the eye back in a little bit. You see that? And maybe a little bit of detail on this trunk here. Let's add some of that detail back in, around here. I think that's going to look good. And maybe on the edge of the trunk and in here, just so we can clearly define that that is a trunk. I think that helps a lot. And if you want to see where we've come from, we can just click here on the canvas. Here's our before and here's our after. So I think it's coming along pretty well at this point. I almost forgot there was one more thing I want to do. Let's come back and click on impression again. I wanted to play with some of these different strokes. So we start with stroke 1. Let's click through some of these and see if we like the look when we click through these strokes. Now that's not bad. Let's try another one here. Let me keep coming through and find one that we really enjoy. Okay. Okay, not liking these as much. They're too smudgy. Ooh, look at that one. Ooh, that's pretty fun. That's like a Seurat. I believe that's the way you pronounce his name, a famous painter. That's kind of fun, actually. More abstract. I kind of like that. But I think maybe type 2. I think type 2 is the one I want to go with. I think that's going to look pretty good. We started with type 1. Let's go to type 2. It's a little more defined. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go with type 3. I'm stopping here. Type 3 is it. Next, what I want to do is add a little bit more color to the sky, bring the blues out in the sky. So we're going to add another filter. This time it's going to be the HSL color filter. I'm just going to select this blue color and pull up the saturation. Not too much, but something like that. I think that looks pretty good. And the other thing I want to do is work on the grass a little bit. So there's some yellows in the grass for sure. And I can lighten that up or darken it. I may darken that down a little bit because the strokes show through a little bit better. We can add more saturation in there if we want. Maybe just a tiny wee bit looks good. And we also have some green up in the front. So let's click on the green. And maybe I'll darken that green up a little bit like that. Just a little wee bit. I like that in the foreground. Adds a little bit of depth and dimension, so that's kind of fun. And then we have this other detail here, so this will bring out overall detail. So I'm just going to maybe add a little bit of extra detail, just like so. See how that brings out some detail in the elephant and the grasses up front, just a little wee bit, but I'm going to work with other detail with the actual precision detail filter next. So let's come up to add filter and let's click on precision detail. You can add detail with precision detail, but you can also take detail away. I want to take some of the detail out of the sky. So I'm going to start out with I'm just going to work with overall today. Detail, I'm just going to take it and move it to the left. And see how that detail starts to come out of the sky? I don't want to take it all out, but I want to smooth it out just a wee bit. Maybe somewhere right around there. Let me try the overall medium. It works with different areas of detail, small, medium, and large details. So I'll just take out a little bit of the medium detail, and I think that looks good. But I don't like what's happening on the rest of the image, so I'm going to get a mask. Let's come up here and click on this layer mask tool. Let's get a graduated filter, and it's doing the opposite of what I want. It's taking the detail out of the foreground, but not the sky. So I'm just going to click right here and turn this around like so. And you can adjust the angle of it like that. Okay, now let's just pull it down. And see this edge of wear right here? I'm going to bring it right around in here, but let's take this edge of wear and really turn this up. And let me just change this transition zone just a little wee bit. See how it's wrapping around the elephant there, but not, taking the detail out of my elephant, which is kind of nice. And let's just change this transition zone just a little wee bit, I think right there. So now I have my detail in the grass, but I have it out of the sky, and that is cool. And that's really all I want to do there, so let's click apply. Now let's grab another precision detail filter, because we can keep stacking these up if we want. Add another filter. It's going to be a precision detail filter, but this time I want to work on the grass in the foreground. I don't think I'll mess with the small detail, but I think I'm going to mess with the medium detail overall and just bring out some of that detail just like that, just a little wee bit. But I'm only thinking of the grass. I don't want it back in this area here, okay? So what we'll do is get another mask, and we'll get another graduated filter here. And this time the graduated filter is going the right way, so we're just going to go like this. This time I think I will shut off my edge aware. And I'll pull this down because I want a nice smooth transition between this area and this area. So let's pull this up a little bit and we can just make sure we add it. Because I don't want to add a whole lot of detail back in this area, but just up in the foreground here. And I think that's good. I'm going to click apply. So that adds just that detail. Now let me shut this precision detail off so you can see here's the before and here's the after. But see that nice little extra detail in the front, which I think really helps. Now I just want to add a little bit of detail back to my elephant. So we're going to add one more precision detail filter. Now I'm just going to look at the elephant and I don't care what happens on the rest because I'll mask it on the elephant. So let me see, do I want to use small detail this time? Yeah, maybe just not too much, because if I go too crazy, it's going to look funky. Hope that's a good word, funky. But maybe right around there. A little bit of overall medium. Not too much, but just a little wee bit. I think that's good. Let's see what large does for us. Maybe just a little tiny wee bit. Okay, so now what I'll do is get another mask. But what I want to do is invert this mask, because right now you see the mask is white. It's revealing the entire adjustment. So let's click on these three dots and click invert. Now that hides our mask. Now let's grab a brush tool. And I'm going to take my transparency the whole way to the right so I get a nice white paint swatch here, because I'll be painting white. Now I'm going to make my brush radius a little bit smaller. Edge aware is turned on. I'll leave my softness the way it is, and I'll just paint. And you have that nice overlay to let you see where you're painting. And the edge aware is going to really help around the edges. So we're just going to paint the detail onto our elephant here. And with that edge aware, it's going to really help us out. Okay, so we'll just paint all down through here. And again, that red overlay is nice. It really helps you see where you're painting here. Just like so. I think I'm good to go. Now look at that. Isn't that cool? So if I click here on the canvas, now I'm just going to left click with my mouse and hold it down. There's our before and here's our after. Now if we want to see how the elephant looks by itself, we can come up to this layer, precision detail, and click this eye. Here's the before and here's the after. But you see how that little bit of detail really helps out. So we added precision detail to this foreground here. And to the elephant, there's none in here, and then we took detail out of the sky. So that precision detail is a really cool filter, and I think that's really all I want to do at this point. I'm really happy with the result. Now all I need to do is send this back into Photoshop, but if you wanted to, you could come here where it says add look, click add look, and save all the things that you've done as a look, and then if you wanted to apply that effect to another image at some point in time, you could. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to come over here and click accept, and that'll send us right back into Photoshop. Well, let's see where we've come from. We started out here and now we've come here, and I'm really happy with it. Now just look over your image, because there's a couple things I think I'd like to fix, because right here on the elephant's ear here, it missed a little section right here. It painted some of this tree line back here, right in here, this green color, and there's this little white speck here I'd like to fix, and there's a little white thing up here which I don't like. What I'll do is add a blank pixel layer above here, and now I'll just grab my spot healing tool. The shortcut for that is J, and I'll start by just fixing this, get rid of that little white line in there. Yeah, I think that looks good. And let's see if I can fill this ear in a little bit right here. Just paint down through there. Yeah, that looks good. And over here there's a little spot here I'd like to fix. And I want to fix this little area right up here, just like that. That is taken care of, and that looks a lot better. Now, at this point, would I be done? No, I would probably do some more work on this image, like I might do some dodging and burning. But I think for now, the video's getting long. Maybe I'll come back to it at another time. And this image is kind of small, because I remember this was a stock image, and it's only like 2,300 pixels wide. So if I wanted to like print this out later, I could upsize this in gigapixel. And I just recently did a video on how to do that with artworks, and I'll link that at the end of this video. But for now, I think I'm done. So I could save this out as a PSD file or a TIFF file with layers at this point in time. And to save it, you would just come up here to File and click Save, or you could do Command or Control S to save it. Well, there it is. We made a painting of an elephant in a field, probably somewhere in Africa. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget you can download this image. It's a stock image and follow along with me. It's a great way of learning. If you enjoyed this tutorial today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.